Howdy, folks.
Welcome to Safely Divergent. Okay. We are your hosts. I'm Kirstie.
And I'm Eleanor. Coffee's in. We are ready to rock and roll. Normally, I'm like a work on one coffee for a whole day type person, but that has changed because I've done this like new kind of viral coffee suggestion where you put like a little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of maple syrup, and then you brew the espresso over it. And then, add cream or oat milk or whatever, and lots of ice because we only drink iced coffee in this household. And it is so delicious. I literally just slurped my coffee down like 10 minutes before we started recording. So
I live with a barista.
I'm going to be jazzed for the next hour.
Let's go!
All right. So, Kers, what are we talking about today? What's our episode?
We are breaking down a big shift in how we think about support, especially support when it comes to neurodivergence. We've been working hard over the years to move away from this like old what's wrong and how do we fix it mindset and into something that like actually works for the complexity of real humans, which is a strength-based approach.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about today, a strength-based approach. So here's the thing, that old mindset, so when we're focusing on like what's wrong, how do we fix it, what's the matter with me, it's still very much alive and well, right? In fact, it's the medical model. It's what continues to be the most common framework used across education and healthcare and in therapy settings.
Yeah, it's the lens that most practitioners are trained through. One that zooms in on what's not typical, not normal, and now how do we go about correcting it, making it better, fixing that person to be perceived as more normal. And I'm air quoting. You can't see it, but I am air quoting.
Quote unquote normal.
My fingers are going to hurt after this episode.
Okay, so I think it's important to first talk about the medical model to kind of get a better understanding of why the shift to a strength-based approach is so important.
Yeah, that like medical model, which is known as a deficit-based approach, is all about spotting what's not working or like what's broken in someone.
Right, and professionals identify what's quote unquote wrong through an assessment process. So like we can speak kind of from our lens of a speech therapy perspective. So a student will come to us, for a speech assessment in order to get speech services. And when they come in for an assessment, we are given these super formal, really structured protocols, testing protocols that we have to follow with the student. And with that, it comes like this really specific script for us to read and really specific prompts and things that we can say and cannot say to help the student. Even like gives requirements on like the tone we use because it wants it to just be super formal, super structured, and just see what the student knows without any support.
It's really cold. Someone's coming in and doesn't really know the people, doesn't know the environment. And then oftentimes it's like, I can't give you eye contact during this. I can't give you support. I can't tell you you're doing a good job.
Yeah, you can't really lead on with like how they're doing. So like you have those students that really rely on like positive praise. And we know that everybody learns in a different way and benefits from different supports. All this to say is this really structured assessment process, which is part of the medical model, definitely has its flaws.
Oh, absolutely. And often it is what is required for people to receive the services that come after through insurance or through their school services. So at this point, it's a huge part of the structure to get support.
And there's a huge percent of people that come in for these speech assessments that have a really difficult time with this kind of test protocol for any of the reasons that we've already talked about, but also maybe communication in general is hard for them, or they use alternate forms of communication and the test doesn't really kind of like allow for that kind of variation. And so they're getting, zeros on these tests, and that doesn't actually represent what this person knows or like their abilities.
And why that's so important is we take those results and then you focus in on that person's limitations or challenges to create interventions to essentially aim to fix or correct or normalize that behavior we don't see as being wrong or broken, but within this viewpoint, within this perspective, it is. And success within this model is essentially fitting into a more typical, more average, more normal standard that is, to a certain point, kind of like made up. Like it is the averages of a group of people, but that's it. It's not like you have to reach this in order to be successful in day-to-day life.
It's like, what is normal? Like we're trying to like reach this like imaginary made up line of like, oh yes, I'm typical. Like, well, come on, what is that?
And I think the reason why we want to help make this shift is because we both kind of fit within that. And the more that we shifted to see ourselves in this other lens, we were like, oh, what normal doesn't exist in the way that it's framed through this model. And so let's bring people through what an example could be of this playing out, at least in the realm we work within. So let's say someone comes in, assessment's completed, that person is identified as being autistic, and I am air quoting, what's wrong is that this person is cognitively inflexible.
Which would be what?
So that's a great question. Me. It would be me.
Here's our best example. Okay, so like thinking about cognitive inflexibility, like this is maybe somebody who has a hard time with schedule changes or like spur of the moment situations.
Let's say a person is trying to hang a picture frame and their route of going about it is very different than the other person helping them.
I'm getting these daggers while Kirstie is staring up at the wall where we need to hang a picture frame that we've been avoiding because we differ.
I get very cognitively inflexible because I can't quite see it your way. But let's get back on track. An assessment was completed. The person is identified as autistic. What's wrong is that they're cognitively inflexible. Eleanor, what's a goal that would be written to target this?
Right. So an example goal for this student would be Kirstie will demonstrate improved cognitive flexibility by using appropriate verbal strategies to adapt to changes in routine or unexpected events in 4 out of 5 opportunities across 3 consecutive sessions.
I've seen this goal written so many times.
And what would this look like? What would practicing this goal look like?
This is throwing a wrench in someone's plans. Like this is like purposely disrupting a person's schedule so that they can practice. And this makes me cringe because what that does to a nervous system is not helpful. These things happen naturally. Let's try to like put it in terms of like me and you. If you were to create this goal and you're like, I'm really going to work with Kirstie on her cognitive flexibility. I've created this goal for her. I'm data collecting.
I've been doing this on the side. I have like a little notebook with tally marks on it.
Okay, so you tell me 5 minutes before we're leaving that we're going to a new restaurant. Our friends called you last week and you just wanted to mix it up and throw me out to the wolves. New places are hard for me. So one of 2 things is going to happen. I'm either going to be like, okay, I can make this happen. I'll go make a really stiff drink, depress down my nervous system, and potentially be able to get out the door. Or I'm going to shut down, freeze, and be like, I can't get ready. I can't do any of these things. I am going to be stuck in this place, which means I failed. Goal was not reached. The other route, I drink up, I get myself out the door, we go to this new restaurant. Success in this goal would be that I had showed up to this restaurant. I was there, period. That was success, right?
Right. You did the thing that was difficult for you. But what did that do to your poor little nervous system?
That would drain out a good chunk, if not all, of my energy reserve. There's no way I'm enjoying myself. But sure, like I showed up, I'm there, I'm sitting there. That's success in a deficit-based medical model, is that you check the box, you showed up. But to me, that's not success because I didn't enjoy the experience, or I had to use a maladaptive tool to really get myself to a point of enjoying an experience, and I don't want to do that.
So what if success wasn't just about getting through it?
I mean, gosh, is there a way to do that? What could it be?
How about a strength-based approach? Strength-based approach, here we go!
So this approach is rooted in what is called the neurodiversity paradigm. Essentially just like recognizing that individual variations are a part of just being a freaking human. Right? Like the most basic viewpoint of that.
And it takes into account like building supports, building accommodations around our areas of need.
So success here is personal fulfillment, not just like conforming to fit this mold of normal. Does it work for me? Do I feel better? Do I keep energy in the tank? That is the focus rather than what is my outside perception to the people that can observe me.
Right. So if we go back to that example of trying out a new restaurant. So we know a few days in advance so that you can, kind of take some time, process through it. What we're going to do ahead of time. We're going to check out the menu. We're probably going to know what we're going to order before we even get there. I like to look at it on Google Maps. Is there a parking lot, or is parking going to be a pain? Because we're in a city where parking is usually a pain. If we're meeting people, I'm going to look that day and see how long it's going to take to get there, taking into account traffic in the afternoons. Maybe we'll call ahead, get a reservation, and request a specific seat. Like we love a corner booth. Mm-hmm. So, we'll go in maybe a little bit early and get a corner booth.
And I think this, like us doing those things initially started as accommodations for me, but I do feel like they make you feel better too. You just don't need them as much. But with these accommodations, you keep more energy in the tank and enjoy your experience more as well. We do all of this so that I'm not just showing up and adapting, but so we can actually enjoy the experience, have real conversations, try new things in a way that feels safe in our body. And I get to leave that table that night, not spiraling about how I came across, what silly thing I said, but thinking like, oh, I'd actually like to do that again, potentially.
Okay, so when we put in these accommodations and we have this good experience and we feel fulfilled, that's success. We're not just surviving it, but we can actually feel good about it. We're actually gaining something from it. We're leaving with maybe more energy than when we arrived, or at the very least, not feeling completely depleted.
We come to this table to talk into these microphones because we want other people to shift that internal dialogue, to accommodate themselves and show up as the best version of themselves, not just show up because you're told to show up. This is what we want for everyone. We know it's possible because we started in a space where we didn't accommodate ourselves and we just fit the mold. But being our most authentic selves, allowing ourselves to use the tools that make us feel better is accessible for everyone, and we want that for everyone. The old, if they can do it, you should be able to as well, like mindset, the just buck up and push through advice. Well, we're really going with the analogies here, aren't we? Neither of us thrived in that framework, and the more we tried to apply it to others, the more it really just felt unnatural, sometimes even like harmful.
That's why we're here, right? That's why shifting to a strength-based lens hasn't just changed how we support other people, like when we talk about like our students in the classrooms, but it's completely reshaped how we understand what it means to operate as humans. It's changed how we show up for others, professionally and in our personal lives, and just as importantly, how we show up for ourselves.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, one last thought before we wrap this up. I feel like we're often taught to see disability or like just ability in general on a single straight line from not capable to fully functioning, wonderful adult.
And you fall somewhere on that line.
Yeah. But I think one tool that's been really, really helpful for both of us is something that's called the Neurodiversity Wheel.
So this is a visual that kind of breaks that linear thinking. Instead of ranking people from less or more able, it helps visualize unique profiles of a person's processing patterns in different areas.
And I think this is a tool that anyone could use. You don't have to be neurodivergent to use this tool. In general, a person is going to have areas of strength and areas of weakness. And this is a tool that really focuses in on that. It helps us to see that everyone's profile is unique. So it's this visual tool that highlights different categories of human processing. Things like creativity, working memory, focus, social communication, sensory sensitivity, all the things that make up how we move through this world.
And it's not about fixing every struggle, it's about understanding them and gaining confidence and supporting ourselves.
Yeah, if you'd like to explore this for yourself, we've created a free Neurodiversity Wheel template. You can find it on our website at safelydivergent.com. I think it's a really great way to start noticing your own patterns, where you thrive, where you might need more support. From there, you can begin finding ways to accommodate your specific needs in a way that leaves you feeling fulfilled and not just more normal. Air quotes. Because we are big supporters of a
strength-based approach.
Yeehaw! I think that is where we should get to our scattered brains.
Have we had a scattered week or what?
I feel like every week we say,
I know.
Have we had a scattered week or what?
Well, maybe
yes,
someday,
that is our lives.
Maybe someday we'll think, wow, we are so organized. We're not scattered at all. But not this week.
Not this week.
Okay, so we'll get into scattered, where it has nothing to do with nothing, just something I did a little diving into. Let's get scattered. Today, Kirst, we are talking about time.
And how it's not real?
I mean, essentially, you're actually not far off, so keep that thought. But I did a little deep dive into time zones. I've always been curious and intrigued by the thought of like all the people that live near a time zone border. Like, let's say your child goes to school in one time zone, you work in the other time zone, and your house is in one or the other.
You know that I couldn't do that, right? I would never. I can't set up a meeting with someone in a different time zone. I have to ask you 4 times.
You 9 times out of 10 go the wrong way.
Yes, I do.
You've missed meetings for this exact reason.
Yes.
I know. Oh, I know that about you. That's so true. And it is confusing, and it is an interesting thought. But first, before we get into the confusing part, I wanted to give a little bit of background information. Like, why do we even have time zones? So the Transcontinental Railroad actually is what got the ball rolling with time zones in the U.S. So before that, it was just kind of chaos, okay? So like every little town had its own time, which meant, the government was dealing with literally thousands of local time zones. And that wasn't really a big deal. But then trains started connecting everything, and then suddenly keeping track of like where a train was and when it was supposed to get to another place. It got super messy. So the railroad companies were like, hey, we need to come up with a system. And then they pushed the government to create, in the continental U.S., the 4 time zones so that they could run on a consistent schedule. Okay.
What would be reasons that people would even really need to know a time? Do you know what I mean? Like, so you make it up of like, okay, the sun comes up. Is it like, hey, I want to go meet you for coffee? But I feel like there weren't coffee shops. There weren't things like that to do.
I think there are still places that do that literally just go off of like the sun.
So
I mean,
if
I can tell you why, and it's political and it's business based.
Yeah. But in those times, so if we were to be living then, and I were to be like, hey, Eleanor, I'd like to go on a walk with you tomorrow. Let's go when the sun cracks over the mountainside. Like that's how you would go about planning things?
I would reckon so.
Wow. That's very intriguing to me. I think I like that life.
Yeah, until you miss all of your appointments, your doctor's appointments.
I feel like there are no appointments that I have to meet in that time. Okay, go on.
Okay, so if you've ever wondered, like, why don't we just have like one time across the world? It's kind of interesting because, and I didn't really know this, so I did a deep dive, but it's all centers around this area called the Prime Meridian. So it's in Greenwich, England, and this area is called the Universal Coordinated Time, so UTC 0. Okay, and anything east of Greenwich has a positive offset. Like it'll be like UTC +2, and anything west is negative. So like Los Angeles, for example, is UTC -8, -8.
But we're west of.
We're 8 clicks west of UTC 0. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That's like the default, like 0. But I thought this was interesting too. Okay, so China's huge, right? Mm-hmm. Guess how many time zones they have? U.S. has 4.
4, 8?
They have 1.
What?
So they used to have 5. In the 1949, the Chinese government decided to switch it from 5 to 1. It's just Beijing Standard Time. And the idea was to promote like national unity. So, fine and dandy. But what happens now is like the far western parts of China, the sun doesn't rise until 10 a.m.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Like that's politics, right? Like you said, like time is fake, but it's also like deeply political. Like how inconvenient would that be?
Yeah. Yeah. Or I'm sure you would just like, our rise time is typically like 6 a.m. So it would be interesting, but also like, okay, so your rise time is 10 a.m.
And then do you start work at 11 or do you still start work at, 7 a.m. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. So another question for you. When we think about daylight savings time, what have we always been taught? Why do we have daylight savings time?
The farmers.
That's a myth.
What?
Yeah, I always thought that. I feel like just with the daylight savings time we had recently, like that's what people were saying. That's totally a myth. Actually, the American farmers apparently opposed daylight savings time. It was made for like cities and urban folks, like retailers and big corporations. They're the ones that pushed daylight savings time because they liked having more daylight in the evening for people to shop and make money during the summer.
No way. That is so opposite of what we've always...
farmers.
Whoa.
No. Okay, so then I did some diving into like another weird time zone fact that's always kind of intrigued me and confused me is how some cities aren't on the hour mark at all. Like there are places that are on 30 minutes or sometimes even 45 minutes off. Like, so for example, my sister, when she was living in Mumbai, India, she was 11 and a half hours ahead of us. And I always thought that is so interesting. Like, why not just go to the hour? And what happens is with these cities, they're like smack in between two time zones. And there wasn't like an agreement on which time zone to take.
Who makes that decision? Who agrees on that?
The government, I suppose.
I see. Okay.
And so instead of just picking one, they split the difference and their time zone is just like at a 30-minute mark.
Look at that compromise.
Time is weird.
Time is oof.
Okay, so like I said earlier, I've always been curious about people who live right near these borders. And so I found like this Reddit forum about people in these situations, like sharing their experiences. So like one guy said, I have to get up at 3 a.m. and leave at 4 a.m. to make a 6 a.m. meeting with a short commute. Because he lives in one, works in another. But then he says, and then I'm back home at 2 p.m. and done for the day.
My brain can't.
I know, it's confusing. Can you imagine if you lived on one of these?
No, that is a extensive mathematical equation you just spit at me.
And another person said, it's pretty cool. Only takes a couple of minutes to drive 80 miles to my parents' house when I visit.
Oh, because it's flipped.
But then I suppose on the way back,
you're doubling.
Yeah. So it's convenient one way. And then another fact, and I thought, oh my gosh, this would drive me crazy. Someone said, it's extremely annoying because your phone is constantly jumping in between time zones. Because your phone, I'm sure you can change the settings, but your phone automatically adjusts. So I'm sure that there are people whose like houses or their property is like split, and like I suppose you just pick one and go with it.
If you ever have us move to somewhere near this, I just have to give up on time. Like there just can't be
no more scheduled appointments for this girl.
No, it won't work.
Yeah, well, so like if you are near one of these borders and you call to make a dentist appointment, you have to clarify which time zone you're in. And so I have one more anecdote, and this is from a TikToker, and her account is Off Her Gourd Flowers. I love her. She was awesome. I know. So she lives in a small town right on the Alabama-Georgia line. And so Alabama's in Central Time, Georgia's in Eastern Standard Time. And she said that people constantly are like crossing the bridge between the two states to like work in one and live in the other. And she said it gets really confusing because businesses near the border of both of them have to kind of get creative. So like an Alabama shop might run on Eastern time to match like the Georgia customers. Like you're trying to like accommodate who is in your time zone like during the day. So like the people coming in there to work. Like, can you imagine scheduling all that? That would be...
So your hours would be like extended. So you may open earlier or stay open later so that the people that are getting off work at 5 o'clock can still come and do the things that they're...
Yeah, I suppose so. So she said even in her own house, half of her family members either work or go to school in Georgia and the other half go to Alabama. And she said it's like really complicated to try to like coordinate things. And she was like, we don't even call it Eastern or Central time. I guess this is pretty common terminology, but the idea of fast time and slow time is pretty common using those terms. Or they'll call it Alabama time or Georgia time. So when you call to make a reservation for dinner or make an appointment or schedule, schedule something, you have to clarify which time zone you're in.
Now that is a cognitive stressor.
It's cognitive stressor to even just talk about. It's confusing to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's so fascinating. Okay, so I have a couple would you rather questions because I knew this was going to be a stressor for you. Would you rather live somewhere where the sun doesn't rise until 10 a.m., like Western China, or have to wake up at 3:30 a.m. to get to work on time in a later time zone?
I think I would choose the China one because then my routine would be based around the sun, not the time of the day.
Mm-hmm. And the sun would stay up much later too.
Yeah. So I think I would be okay with it as long as like I could still set my own schedule. Mm-hmm. Like if sun didn't rise until 10 a.m. and I had to be, in somewhere by 8 a.m., that wouldn't be good. That would feel like that would really throw off my circadian rhythm.
Okay, would you rather work remotely for a company 12-hour opposite time zone, so on the other side of the world, or have to commute 90 minutes every day in your own city?
So I would be working nights, essentially. The first option.
Correct.
I would say 90-minute commute because I think I would enjoy... If it were like a just free drive commute, not like a really heavy traffic commute, then I would choose.
Okay, so not our Los Angeles commute.
No, thank you.
Here. Okay, last one. Would you rather live in a town that splits two time zones, like Alabama or Georgia? Which, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine you living in one of those settings.
I'd be off grid. I just would not. I would not time.
Yeah, or live in a city that's 30 minutes off from kind of essentially the rest of the world, like we were talking about with like Mumbai or New Delhi.
Like I would just be in a 30-minute like ahead.
Yeah.
I feel like I could work that in my favor. Like you do this to me anyhow of like, hey, we need to leave and you give me the time and it's actually like 30 minutes earlier. So you like get me out of the door faster. So I feel like I could just make myself believe that we're on the other time and it would give me
You would just be running early for everything?
Yeah.
It would be really difficult to live, I think, in a split county.
I agree.
All right. That was my scattered, and I feel like I'm more scattered after talking about it. I don't know about you, but
I need to go take a nap.
We need to turn off our clocks and go take a nap.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you loved the episode, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or follow and subscribe on Spotify. For a deeper dive into this week's topic, follow us on social media at Safely Divergent and check out our blog at safelydivergent.com. Our cover art is by Honor Heindel and our music by Obey Gray. As a reminder, we're just two people with microphones, a lot of thoughts, and some highly questionable hyperfixations. We're not your therapists, doctors, or life coaches, so please do not base major life decisions on our couch chats. Until next time, we hope your nervous system stays safe and social, and your to-do list magically does itself.